Hey guys, welcome back to the AWS Cloud demos. In today's demo, we will discuss about how we create a private APIs using API gateway. We will use a Lambda function to create, read, update, delete operations on a DynamoDB table. So for this, we will create a private APIs. All right, so we will create a private VPC endpoint. We will create a IAM role for our Lambda functions to do the CRUD operations on our DynamoDB table. All right. So as you know, API Gateway is a fully managed service, right? That makes it easy for developers to create, publish, maintain, or monitor and secure the APIs at any scale. APIs also acts as a front door for the applications to access data, business logic, or functionality for your backend services, and you could also create the RESTful APIs, WebSocket APIs, and enable the real-time two-way communication applications. So API Gateway supports containerized and serverless workloads as well as web applications, right? So in today's demo, we will look into the REST APIs, private REST APIs. Okay. So for that, without further ado, let's go ahead and create a Lambda functions and API gateway. So log into your Amazon AWS console. So I have a small diagram which shows the flow. Basically, cloud user logs into the console, who creates the API gateway, which triggers the Lambda function, and Lambda function is going to do CRUD operations on DynamoDB, like create, read, update, delete, and then you get the response back to the API gateway. This is all in a private VPC. Okay, so I'm going to link this diagram in the description box below, and also if you guys like this video, please share, like, subscribe, and comment down in the video. I would really appreciate you guys. And yeah, I think let's go ahead and start creating the AWS services, right? So for this to begin, let me go to the so we're gonna need to create a security group which allows a HTTPS access, right? So for this, I head to EC2 by typing EC2 in the search box. You see the list, or you can create shortcuts like these, which is pretty easy for me. Now go to the security groups. I'm going to create a security group called private VPC security group. I'm going to name this as SG, and security group for VPC endpoint. All right, and I think make sure you select the default VPC, create add rule, HTTPS, and then allow from anywhere, which is like this. I think it should be good, and you go ahead and create a security group like so. All right, okay, now that security group is being created, so the next immediate step for me would be creating a VPC endpoint. So for that, in the search box, type VPC. You should be able to see the service, and in the VPC, I'm gonna go to endpoints. Yeah, there it is. Now let's click on create endpoint. So I think you can leave this name optional. It is you don't need to give any name, but if you want, go ahead and give the VPC endpoint name. I'm going to choose AWS services from service category, and then in the services category, just filter out execute API. This is what I need in my case, because this is the interface endpoint. This is not a gateway endpoint, this is an interface endpoint. Now after you select the execute API, execute API, make sure it is selected like so, and then select your default VPC, go to additional settings. Do you need anything from here? No, I don't think so. Select all the sub availability zones, like so, and then select the subnet IDs from the drop downs, as you see. Okay, and then select IPv4 and select the security group that we have just created, and then select the full access, and there you go. You should be able to create a endpoint. Okay, now that you have successfully created a VPC endpoint, the status is still pending, so it might take 2 or 3 minutes for this to be available. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is go ahead and while we wait for this VPC endpoint to be created, what I'm gonna do is go ahead and open up the DynamoDB table. Let's go ahead and create it. DynamoDB. So my DynamoDB table is gonna have the user data, right? So for this, what I'm gonna do is create a user DB table. Okay, let's say the partition key is ID, and I don't have any sort key, table settings, default settings, and that's it. Create table. Okay, so now that you have created a table, it might take 2 minutes again for you to see this user table, and then we will create items in the table, so that we can do some create, read, update, and delete operations on this DynamoDB table. Okay, sure. Now it is active. Now click on user DB table. Click on explore table items on the right hand side on the top. Once you click it, click on create item over here. Let's say the ID is 1. I'm gonna add my first name, last name, and age. Okay, I'm gonna do first name. My name is Murli. Last name, you can say something like that, and age, I'm gonna say 30, but my age is not 30, by the way. Okay, click on create item. Okay, and now I'm gonna create a second item, which is ID number 2. Add first name, last name, and age. Okay, first name is John, last name is gonna be Doe, age is somewhere around 48. Okay, create item. So I think you should create another item just for the sake of more data. The more the data you have, the more changes we can make. String first name is David, string last name David. You can do something like Williams or something. Add a new string. Age, it's gonna be something around 38 maybe. All right, or maybe 35. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. You just need some dummy data here to make this work. All right, so now that you have some dummy data in your user DB table, let's go ahead and create a list Lambda function. Okay, so now you have created a table. Now let's go to Lambda function. Okay, let's create a Lambda function now, in order to list the users that we have in our DynamoDB table. So for this, select the author from scratch option over here in the top right, in the corner, and the top left corner. All right, and choose your name as list list users. So this is my function name. Okay, and so I'm gonna choose Python 3.9, which is what I have created, and choose the existing role. By the way, I don't have any role at the moment, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go and create a role. So I'm gonna duplicate this tab onto and go to IAM. Okay, let's create a role now, okay, which gives the permission to my Lambda function to create, read, update, delete to my DynamoDB table. So click on roles, click on create role. Okay, AWS service, select Lambda from here, click on next. So now that you have to attach policy, click on this create policy on the right hand side, like always we do. So create or click on create policy, and now go to the JSON data. Okay, just remove this. I have created a sample. So in the AWS docs, right? So to allow the access to a specific table, okay, so we have a policy, okay, a dummy policy where we will be replacing this my table with the DynamoDB table that we have. So for that, you simply copy this JSON, go back to the IAM console, go to wherever you're creating the policy, paste it. Okay, so my table is nothing but user DB table. Okay, this is my DynamoDB table. So only give DynamoDB scan, query, create, delete, update, put item permissions to my user DB table. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And go ahead and click on next tags. You don't need any tag. Click on review. You're going to create policy name. My so this is going to be private API DynamoDB policy. Okay, you can write description whatever you want. You have this DynamoDB, so you can you see the permissions what we have given to our DynamoDB table. All right, click on create policy. Okay, so now you're successfully able to create a policy because we have started in the previous window where we were giving the IAM role. This is where I've created my policy. Go back to the previous tab if you have not closed, and click on this refresh button over here. You should be able to see the policy that we have just created, which is private API DynamoDB policy. And there you go. You can see this policy here. Select the policy and click on next. So the role name is going to be private API DynamoDB Lambda role. Okay, the name is lengthy, but whatever makes sense to you guys, just choose the name whatever you want and go ahead and create a role. Yeah, there you go. All right, so now that you are able to create the role, and go back to the other window where you have tried your Lambda. Did I close the tab? Nope. So this is the tab that where I have started list users Lambda. I've selected Python 3.9, select the architecture 8664, and then use the existing role. I still don't see the role here. Just click on refresh on the right side. You should be able to see private. Yeah, there you go. So this is the role, private API DynamoDB Lambda role. Select the role and create a function. Now that you have created a function, okay, the first thing that I do is just select all and remove it. Okay, I will give you the link to my AWS snippets in the GitHub. What you're gonna do is go to list Lambda. So this is where I'm gonna list the users from my Lambda from the DynamoDB table. Okay, so go back to the Lambda wherever you are creating, copy and paste the code. Basically, we are using Boto 3 Python client. So what we're going to do is choose the DynamoDB table, which is user DB table, and we're just going to scan and return the items that we get. Okay. For this, you need IAM role, which we have created just a moment ago. So what we're going to do, you need to assign that IAM role to the Lambda function for your function to run successfully. Okay, so this is the function. You can copy the function from here, which is I'm going to share the link of this files, so you should be able to copy and paste for your purpose. Okay, now go back to the Lambda that we have and click on deploy. You should be able to successfully update the function list users. So now go ahead and click on test, and this event is going to be list users, and okay, and just remove all of this and click on save. Okay, what's wrong? Maybe select API gateway, or hang on. Okay, let's leave this. Let's leave the empty object over here. I think it is complaining about event JSON. Click on save, and make sure it is selected, and click on test. There you go. Now you can see this is the response that I get from my DynamoDB table, and you can see all the items we were successfully able to retrieve from the DynamoDB table, okay, using my list users Lambda. All right. Now to to begin with, let's go ahead and create a API gateway so that we should be able to access these items from my API gateway. So we will trigger the Lambda function, and Lambda function is going to, you remember, this is our diagram where we will use the API gateway to trigger the Lambda, and Lambda is going to get the data from the DynamoDB table and return it back to the API gateway. All right. So now we have completed the Lambda function. Now we have completed the DynamoDB table, and now it's time for us to create an API gateway and then call the Lambda function. All right. So if you go back to the Lambda function, wherever you were creating, go search for API gateway like so, and select the API gateway from the list of services. And now go ahead and click on create API on the right side, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, make sure you select the you can see the private REST API. All right, and create a REST API that is only accessible within a VPC. Okay, this is what we're going to do now. Okay, click on build, make sure it is selected REST, new API, select the name as users. Okay, endpoint, make sure it is selected private, and also come here and you should have your endpoint IDs. Okay, remember, you have created a VPC endpoint. You need to copy the VPC endpoint ID and put it here. Okay, close the other windows, and now select the VPC from the search box like so, and then select the VPC and go to endpoints wherever we had created. Okay, so that's my endpoint, that's my endpoint ID. So select the endpoint ID, and you should be able to copy the endpoint from here. Okay, go back to the API gateway and simply paste the ID over here, and you can see that this is my VPC endpoint ID. Okay, make sure you have selected endpoint type as private and API name is users. In my case, you can do whatever the name you like. Okay, so click on create API. You should be able to create the API like so. So this is the default resource that I have. So what I'm going to do is click on this and create a resource which is named as list. Okay, so basically what we are trying to do is list the number of users that we have in the DynamoDB table. So now that we have created list, now select the list, okay, and click on create method, which is of type get, because this is the get operation that we wanted to do. Now that you have created a get method, select the Lambda function, make sure you're on the Lambda region US East 1, and select the Lambda function which is list users, and type the list users and click on save. Okay, and also click on this. Okay, so now you're in this method execution screen. What I'm going to do is click on method request. And do you have any query parameters? No, I don't have any query parameters. I don't need to edit anything integration request, so I'm going to click on test. Okay, there's nothing over here. Query strings, nothing. Headers, no headers. Click on test. See, I've got the response 200, which is fine. I mean, my list API is working, and I can see all the data from my DynamoDB table, which is being retrieved from the Lambda back to the API gateway. Okay, so I was successfully able to get the list of users that I have in my DynamoDB table. Now it's the time to create a Lambda function which will get the user by the ID. All right, so for this reason, what I'm going to do is go back to this window. Let's keep the Lambda screen open. Okay, go to click on Lambda, and now go to you can see the list users right now. Click on create function. We'll create another function. Make sure you select other from scratch. Now create another function which is get user. Okay, this is get user by ID. Okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and then select the Python 3.9 x86. Go to change, go to the use default, use an existing role, and select the private API DynamoDB table, DynamoDB Lambda role. Okay, and then click on create function. So there you go. Now you are able to create a function which is get user by ID. So I'm going to remove the code here, go back to my console. I have created a get lambda. Just copy the lambda, go back to the lambda function and paste it. Okay, we are using the Boto 3 again. Okay, So we're going to retrieve a student ID from the API gateway, and then what we're going to do is we're going to query the table, which is UserDB table, by the key, which is student ID, so that we will get only the student ID that we need. Okay. So um, and then returns the item, the only item that you mentioned in the ID. Okay. I hope this is pretty straightforward, and now go ahead and deploy it. Okay. So now you have successfully deployed your function get user by ID, and now go back to the API gateway. Okay. Click on this resource and go to create resource. Let's say get user. Okay, get user, and then click on create resource, sorry. And this is my get user endpoint, and I'm gonna go and create a method for this, which is nothing but get and save it. Okay. In the get setup screen, make sure you select the Lambda function, select the US East one because that's where it is. And now my Lambda function is going to be get user by ID. Select the get user by ID Lambda function and click on save. Okay, and click on OK on this pop-up. That's just fine. And now you're on the method execution screen. You should be able to add the query string because that's where you're going to send the ID from the API gateway, so that you will get the item by its ID. So click on method request like so, and go to URL query string parameters and click on add query string, which is nothing but my student ID, and click on save. Okay, so now that I've saved the student ID, and go back to the method execution, so I have added my query string, and now in the integration request, what I'm going to do is mapping, go to the integration request and click on mapping templates, and add mapping type, which is nothing but application slash JSON. This is my content type. Select and that's fine. You just secure the integration, and you should be able to see this screen as soon as you add this application slash JSON. This is where I'm gonna for example, I have student ID. Make sure you read it from the Lambda like so. Go back to the API gateway, paste this. Okay, this is my student ID, and this is my params, which is student ID in the URL, right? So in the URL, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add the query string, which is student ID, and we need to pass it to the Lambda function. Okay, now click on save and go back to the method execution. Okay, now click on test. Let's go ahead and test. Okay, get user. Now we have given student ID as our query string parameter, right? So you can see the example like here, which is, for example, I want to retrieve the first user, okay, in my table, and we will also experiment with the other users as well. Don't worry yet. Now click on test. There you go. Now you are able to retrieve only that specific item which I have mentioned, which is by ID 1. Okay, now I'm gonna do second second student by sending the student ID 2. Click on test. Okay, there you go. So you are able to retrieve the second student now, and also you could do the same thing with the student number 3. All right. Okay. So now you're able to get only the specific student, right? So that this will make sure it returns only that specific item from the DynamoDB table. Now let's go ahead and go to the Lambda again. Okay, go to click on functions. You have listed users. You have get user by ID. Now I'm gonna do something like a delete. Okay, delete user by ID. Okay, I'm gonna select Python 3.9 and go to change default execution role, use an existing role, which is private API DynamoDB Lambda role. In my case, click on create function. All right, like what I did previously, just select it and delete it. Okay, and go to delete Lambda like so, and copy the delete Lambda function, Python function, go to your API, go to your Lambda function and paste it. Again, we are using the Boto3 DynamoDB table, UserDB table. This is how I'm going to get the reference of my table. This is my student ID. We're going to pass the input.params like we did in the previous function, get user by ID. We're going to pass the student ID to this Lambda function and delete that item which is in the DynamoDB table, which is having this particular student ID, whatever you are passing from the API gateway. All right. So I hope you guys have understood. Click on deploy. Okay, so now that you have deployed the Lambda, okay, you're ready. Okay, go to the API gateway like we did previously. Click on this, click on create resource, which is delete user. Click on create resource. In delete user, select the delete user and click on create method and choose the method called delete from here, because we are trying to delete a user by his ID. Okay, now in the delete setup window, make sure you select the Lambda function US East 1, and then I have delete user by ID. Okay, click on save and OK. All right, so now we are in the execution screen. See, we have to give the query string like so. If you're on the screen, click on method request, click on URL query string parameters, add a query string which is student ID in my case, and click on this little tick and go back to the method execution. Click on integration request. So make sure you have selected Lambda function US East 1 and delete user by ID. This is my Lambda function. Click on mapping templates and add a content type which is application/JSON and select this little tick and go ahead. Don't worry about this warning, just click on secure integration, and we're going to paste the same thing that we had previously, which is student ID, and just copy this and paste it. So this line of code is nothing but simply passing the student ID to the Lambda function. Okay, and then click on save and go back to the method execution. So in here you have query strings, student ID, and you have edited your integration request. Now that it is time that you have completed your setup for the delete user by ID, go ahead and click on test. Okay, now I'm gonna mention student ID like we did previously, student ID 3. I'm going to delete a student with the ID 3 and go ahead and test it. Let's see what's going to return. There you go. Now I have received 200 success, which means it might have deleted the item number 3 from the DynamoDB table. For that to prove, I'm going to duplicate my tab and open up DynamoDB table, which is, in my case, it is user DB table. So now DynamoDB, okay, click on DynamoDB table and click on user DB table, explore table items. There you go. We have deleted the third item, and we can do the same test. We can delete the second item now. Go ahead to the API gateway, change the number 3 to number 2 student ID, click on test. Okay, I've got 200 success, which means this should have been deleted. Click on refresh. Okay, from here, there you go. Now it has been deleted. All right, so now that we have our delete user by ID, which is working fine from our API gateway, so now it is time for us to update, okay, the DynamoDB table. Go ahead and click on functions again, create function. We're gonna update user by ID, update user, and select Python 3.9. Change a default execution role, use existing role, select the private API DynamoDB Lambda role. In our case, click on create function. So now that we have created a function, okay, just remove the default template, go back to my code and copy the update Lambda. Okay, go to Lambda, paste it. We're using Boto 3 again, same. We are trying to get the reference of the table like so, and with the table we have a student ID, table column name, table column value, and then update item. So we're gonna pass the student ID and we will update the table. Okay, click on deploy. All right, and then what I'm gonna do, and come back to your API gateway page, select the default resource and create a resource which is nothing but update user, create a resource, and now I'm gonna do a update create a method which is post. Okay, and click on this little tick Lambda function. I'm going to choose update user and go ahead and save it. Okay, click on OK. That's fine. Now that you have your method execution screen, go ahead and click on method request, and you need to pass the query string, which is nothing but student ID. Click on this little tick on the far right, click on table column name, which is like that, and add the table column value. You can choose whatever names you like for your API gateway. If you change this value, make sure you also change that in the Lambda, right? Because I'm trying to access it there. Now that you have created a table column value, and then go ahead and go back to the integration request and choose the mapping template. Add the mapping template, which is application underscore application slash JSON. Click on this little tick. It's okay. Click on yes integration, and you're gonna do something like you're gonna paste the data that you want to send to your Lambda, which is something like this. Copy this data, go back to the API gateway, paste this. So you should be able to see input params, student ID, to call table column name, table column value, and click on save. Okay. And click on the method execution, and now that you're back in the method execution screen, so you can see the query strings that we need to pass. Now click on test. Now student ID is going to be 1 because that's the only user that I have left with, because we have deleted the previous users. The only user that I have is Murli, which is with ID 1. Okay. Now go back to the API gateway, click on student ID is 1, and I'm going to change my table column name, which is table column name, which is what is the column name? First name, right? And table column value, which is nothing but I'm going to update it with something like really. Okay. And then yeah, I think that looks good. You have given table column value, you have given table column name, which is first name, and the student ID, which is number 1. Okay, now go ahead and click on test. What did we get? It is failed to update the item. Not sure why. So let's go ahead and check why it is not updating my data. Okay, so go ahead and go to your Lambda function. Let's see if there is something wrong here. Okay, maybe just rename this to column name and rename this to column value. Okay, this looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and deploy it. Okay, now you have successfully updated your update user function. Okay, go back to your API gateway and try and replace this with column name, and try and replace this with column value. Column value Murli, column name, first name, student ID 1, and let's go ahead and test it. Does it work? Nope, not yet. Maybe go to the method execution and go to the integration request. We need to change the mapping template as well, which is column name and column value, and click on save. Okay, now go back to the method execution, click on test. This is my column name, first name, and column value, which is Murli. Okay, let's go ahead and test this now. It should work, I believe. Yeah, there you go. You got the response, which is status 200. You got the response back. So that means if you go back to your DynamoDB table, which is still Murali, if you click on refresh, that should be, there you go. Now my name is also updated to Murali. So yeah, I think that's it. That's it, guys. If you really like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please hit that like button. Subscribe. Please comment in the comment section below, and also Please give me any suggestions or anything that you would like to see in the demo. Please feel free to contribute to the AWS Cloud Demos channel. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for being part of my channel. And if you did not subscribe yet, please subscribe, hit that like button, and thank you so much, guys. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you.